I'm going to show you how you can transform your images from this to this. The quality of the pictures you use for your designs are really important, and it can make your design look nice, or it might make it not look very nice. So in this video, I'm going to take you through how I usually do my edits when it comes to any design that I'm working on and I'm using pictures. This is exactly how I do them. Now it depends on the kind of picture you are working with. So I'm going to be using a picture of my friend here. The reason why I'm using a real picture and not using a stock image is that most of the times we usually deal with these real people and they send us real pictures, and usually the pictures that they share with us doesn't really look nice. So as a designer, you need to have some basic image editing skills that you can just apply to the pictures that you receive, which are not that good. So when you have these simple editing skills as a designer, it can really help you just raise the quality of your designs, because the quality of the design usually depends on the quality of the picture that you use. So without further ado, let's get into Photoshop. So here we are in Photoshop, and you can see I'm using this image right here. Now this is the before and now this is the after. So after all the edits that we are going to do, this is what we are going to end up with. Just look at the before and then the after. So I'm just going to duplicate this and then hide this right here. So I'm going to get rid of this camera raw filter so that you guys can follow through and see how I usually go through every effect. Now the basic tool that we are going to be using is the camera raw filter in Photoshop, and it's really great for doing basic picture editing. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And to do that, make sure you're on your layer right here. If there is a layer mask on it, just make sure you delete the layer mask if there's no background. In this case, I'll not delete the layer mask, but I'll also make sure that I'm not selecting the layer mask. So I'll make sure that I'm selecting the main layer right here. So when you go to filter and then you come to camera raw filter, this is where we usually get all those camera raw filter tools that you can use to level up the quality of your images. So here we are in camera raw filter, and now I'm just going to come to the basic tab right here. And the first thing I notice is that the picture is on the magenta side, and I need to reduce the magentas in the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come to my temperature here, or my white balance, and then I'll take this is magenta. So if you drag this towards your right side, you see the magenta becomes more obvious. But then what we are going to do is, since we are reducing, we are going to actually drag it to the left side, to the grains. So if I start doing that, you'll notice that the magentas in the picture has reduced a bit. So this is our before and after. Just look at the transformation we've done with like one tool right here. The next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to increase the shadows or the brightness of this picture, because the picture is really dark, and I shot it myself actually. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the exposure like this. So what I normally do with this exposure is I just increase it a bit to like 0.25 rather for now. And then we are going to move to our highlights. Now the highlights are all these parts here. You see they are overexposed a bit, so I'm just going to reduce them right here, just so I can bring back the details in the shirt right here. Now I'm going to increase my contrast a bit, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'll come to my shadows, and here that's where we are really going to get the difference. So I'm going to drag to the right side. So when I do that, you start to see all these shadows here, they start getting exposed. So I'm just going to expose my shadows right here. But you see, when you expose the shadows, you lose some details in the blacks right here, because the picture just becomes too exposed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my blacks, and then I'll just drag it back just like this, just so we can bring back some contrast in the image. So we have something like this. Just with a few adjustments, we'll be able to do something from this to this that is just amazing. But we are not done. The next thing I usually do is just bring down my wise too. So you can notice that we've used everything here, and it depends on the kind of image that you are using. Just drag them to the left, to the right. If it looks nice, or if it's okay for your design, if it's okay for you, you can leave it over there. So you just have to play with everything here. You don't need to stick with what I'm doing. It depends. I don't edit every picture this way, but it depends on the kind of picture that you are using. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to clarity. So clarity, that is just going to increase the clarity. I'm just going to bring it more contrast into the image. So I'm just going to increase my clarity, and then I'm going to increase my texture a bit. The next thing I'm going to do is come to my vibrance, and I'm just going to add a little bit of color to our image. So this is our before and this is our after. Now the next thing I'm going to do is open my curve. In the curve tab, what you are going to see here is just a simple line, and this is where we are going to make all our curves. Now if you look at the curves here, this side right here, that is the highlights. In the middle here, those are what we call the midtones, and over here, down here, that's what we call the shadows. So if you can see, you can see that if I click, it makes a point on this straight line right here. So if I click and then drag it down, I'm in the shadows. That is why it is reducing the shadows. It is making the image more darker. So I'm just going to press Ctrl+Z to go back. And then what we are going to do is I'm just going to reduce my highlights a bit, and then click on my shadows and then increase the shadows just a little bit. You don't need to do it. You don't need to overdo it. You just need to make sure that the picture doesn't get blown out. Now, in some cases, you might have an overexposed image, and what you can do is just click on the highlights, bring it down a bit, and then click on the shadows. If the shadows is also very exposed, you just click and bring it down to bring in more shadows, and just keep the image natural. So for now, I'm going to leave my thing like this. I'm going to leave my edit like this. So you can see we have before, you can see we have after. Just look at the transformation here. The next tab that we are going to is the detail tab. So in the detail tab, this is where you add your sharpness to the image. So this image is pretty sharp already. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the sharpness a bit, just a little bit, to add in more detail into my image. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of noise reduction to remove some noise in the image that I can see right here. But it's also going to make the image a little bit smooth. If you are a fan of that, you are free to explore and just see what works for you in here. Basically, this is just what I do if the picture needs more editing. Like if I need to edit some colors and stuff, this is where I'll come to my color mixer. So for example, if I need to edit this the color of his shirt right here, I can just click and drag from my blues right here. But I don't need to do that right now, since that's not really important in the design that I'm using it for. I'm going to go back to my basic tab right here, and in the basic tab, I notice in the image it is becoming more yellow. It is falling on the yellow part. So I'm just going to reduce the yellows by dragging it to the blues a bit to reduce the yellow. Now I'm just going to leave it at -2, just like this. So you see we have before and then we have after. Now I'm going to make some adjustment here, just because I think the image still needs a little bit of tweaking. So I'm just going to check in here, maybe increase my shadows, increase my contrast. So if I increase my contrast, you notice it's bringing both the highlights and the shadows, and then it's trying to make it more balanced on the image. So I'm just going to increase my contrast right here. So when you increase the contrast, it just enhances everything in the image. So you have before and this is our after, and this is basically what I usually do whenever I'm editing any picture for a design. Now that we are done with this, we just need to come and click on OK, and then it will load up and apply your camera raw filter. So we have something like this. This is the before and this is the after. Just look at, with a few changes that we made in the camera raw filter, we are able to go from this to that. That is just amazing. Usually when I'm editing and I'm done with this camera raw filters that I've done here, what I usually do is just add a little bit of eye whiteness and teeth whiteness, because most of the time the effects that we add, it also affects the color of the eyes and also the teeth. So to correct that, I just add this eyes whitening and teeth whitening effect, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and it's very simple, so stay tuned. I'm going to come to my adjustment layer here. I'm going to click on it, and then first of all I'm going to add vibrance. So in the vibrance tab right here, I'm just going to click and then reduce my vibrance to about -82 right here. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come to my curves, and then I'll add a curve right here. I'll just increase the brightness a little bit, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my adjustment layer again, and I'm going to add a photo filter. So in the filter right here, I'm going to choose this cooling filter right here. So this is cooling filter A2. So I'm just going to click on that, and this is what we are going to have on our image. Now you might be looking at this and it all looks strange, but just look at this. So what we are going to do is I'm going to select all these 3 layers. So I'm going to click on the first one, press shift, and then click on the last one. So we have all these 3 layers selected, and I'm just going to group them, and in the group I'm going to name them eyes and teeth whitening. So we are going to have something like this. Now this is not the final image because we cannot work with something like this, obviously. So I'm going to add a layer mask. Now if you add a layer mask here, you're not going to see any changes. That is because we have to invert that layer mask. So to invert the layer mask, I'm going to press Ctrl+I to invert the layer mask. So now anything that we are going to paint on white, so anything that we are going to paint on white, we are going to reveal the filters that we've just added here. So first of all, I'm going to make sure this is not on black. So I'm just going to switch the colors from black to white, and then I'm going to zoom in on my image right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint around the eye area. So something like this. And then also a little bit on the teeth too. Just make sure you are not overdoing it, and you have to take your time with it. And then I'm just going to press X to switch the color from white to black. And I'm just going to erase some parts. Feel free to zoom in and make any edits that you want to make. So you can see this is the before and this is the after. Now this looks, a bit too much. So what I usually do is I just reduce the opacity to about 50 thereabout, and then we are going to have something like this. So just with these few changes, we've been able to take our image from this right here. We've been able to take our image from this right here to this. That is really crazy, and it's very, very good. And as a designer, you need to know how you can make your pictures come alive. Clients can send you any picture, but then you need to have some picture editing skills so that you can also just improve on the quality of the images that the client usually send. And this is how I do my editing in Photoshop. If you have any other suggestions, you can leave a comment below. And if you learned something and enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your other designer colleagues so they can also benefit from this video. And I'll see you in the next video.